noise issues and tax issues in the same day. Awesome. It's like Shelburne and incorporation on one shot. Okay. Tim, did you ever get a response to the from the IT department as to, or did you had said at the last meeting that I was at that you were going to get me the date at which you requested the GB list from the IT department? Did you ever do that?
I don't recall the date. I know it was in April. I don't know the specific date.
No, but at the last meeting you said you were going to get me the date.
I did not do that.
You did not do that. Okay. On the capital requests, I got an email from Carolina this morning with a summary of the capital requests. However, my request was all written capital improvement requests from all departments for the 2017 year. It's summarized. Why is there a summary? Why didn't I just get the written capital request, improvement requests as I specified? Why am I getting summaries?
That would have to come from the controller, but I did see the requests. My understanding was the controller took all the documents and put them on one sheet so you could see that.
No, but I asked for, and we had a specific discussion the last time, all written capital improvement requests from all departments. All written capital improvement requests from all departments. In the document that you sent me, it says here that, and I just want to make sure we're clear, in a meeting that, in a work session, it said here that you, that a written request, like in this summary, it says that Theodore Young specifically requested the $1 million for the pool and the roof. But there was a work session where Andre Early was here saying that he didn't make that request. So what I'm asking for is not a summary as if he made that request, or as if the police made a different request, or as if Jerry Byrne made a request, but the actual requests. Why am I not seeing the specific requests from all the departments? Why is it getting summarized in a document? And maybe, can I also have all the correspondence creating this summary? Why am I not getting what I'm asking for?
Giving the specific request, there's nothing,
If
to
they exist.
But if they exist,
I mean,
whatever
when
we
I look
have.
at the disc, I don't see any information with respect to that. Now, I did speak to the controller this morning, and she said that from time to time you have discussions about requests that are not necessarily
Yeah, because basically what generally happens is, I'll meet with department heads, and I'll meet with, the controller, and we'll go over some of the, general requests. But, the thing is, there were, I forget, it was like many millions of dollars in additional, requests, and the department heads knew that most of it was going to be, rejected. So we tried coming up with, we tried paring it down so it's possible that, a lot of it was discussion for basic discussion.
The only thing I would say here is, given the details that have been put together in these requests and how similar they are to what is actually in the published document for capital improvement, it appears to me that these were in fact written. So I guess my question to you guys is, are you saying that you have no knowledge of written requests? Are you saying to me seriously that you have no knowledge of written requests made? You have no knowledge of written requests made?
Basically, I'm saying I don't, but we'll bring the controller down and we'll ask her.
Well, the other point, Tim, is that we consulted with Bob Freeman on this, and he very specifically said that any communication within departments is considered intra-agency and therefore is not foilable. So what the comptroller did to make it, as Tim said, easy for you was to summarize for you on one sheet of paper what she presented to the board. So that it represents all the requests. It represents in summary form, but any communication among department heads is intra-agency.
Okay, so
just to add to that, I did speak to Roberta this morning. It's arguable whether you're even entitled to the documents, but just to be transparent, we want to give it to you. So when I spoke to her, I think the standard was, even though it's intra-agency, if those requests were discussed at a meeting like
Right.
this,
And that's
they
why
would be
she made it.
disclosable.
Can we just
So
get a
we wanna-
definition?
so
Are you
we
saying a
wanna
department and an
disclose-
agency are the same thing? Is that what, are you guys now
Yeah.
saying a department and an agency are the same thing?
Each
way-
department is considered an agency.
The way it's referred to in the statute is intra-agency.
Right.
Is within one agency. That's the way it's worded. So you could say it's interagency, but that's the way the statute reads. But we'll bring Ms. Romano down, and she'll tell you whether she has it or not.
Right.
I don't have a capital budget, so I don't know how she does that.
But have you provided Jeff Sherwin with a list of all documents you're claiming should be withheld from FOIL on grounds of interagency, as required by the statute?
No.
I don't think you did.
No, Bob, that's not the point.
In order to avail yourselves of an exemption from disclosure, and to do that at a public hearing, an appeal, you have to come forward with some evidence to show that the documents in question fall within that exemption. You can't just say, it's all covered by
But my
interagency.
position is, there's nothing to hide. I have no problem releasing, the information, and, because I sort of feel that, there's a lot of infrastructure needs, for the town. And everybody who, works here and lives here knows that, we could be spending millions and millions of dollars, but, we're trying to comply with the tax cap. We have been complying with the tax cap, every year. Our infrastructure, I think we're doing a much better job than many of the surrounding, communities in terms of keeping up with the, with the infrastructure needs. However, we recognize that a lot more has to be done, and we're also trying to get outside grants. Right now, I've been working with Victor Carosi and John Devney of the Water Department.
Are you having a conversation about FOIL right now, or are you just having a conversation about capital improvement?
No, I'm just saying that.
Okay, let's just stay on that.
No, I'm just saying we're trying to get grants.
Maybe you'll get-
I'm saying.
That's not the conversation.
No, I'm saying,
Just let her finish.
for example, in the water department, there's a lot of, water, needs. I'm trying to get grants to offset some of the taxpayer, contributions. There's other infrastructure needs that might have been denied, and maybe we're going to try, not maybe, we're going to try reaching out to, for grant opportunities. We did get a grant for sidewalks, almost $800,000.
Mr. Fine,
No,
respectfully, the conversation that you're having about capital improvements is irrelevant to my request.
No,
about
I said, I said,
I'm just asking for
I
the
have
documents.
no problem giving you the documents.
So,
Whatever exists,
I
suggested you can.
asked for.
There's no comment. We both are in agreement.
I don't think that we're in agreement here.
There is. I'm saying that
I just want to be. I want to be clear. All written capital improvement requests from all departments.
Right. I have no problem giving it to you.
Okay. So there have been, and I have seen from you guys, 30 emails that have emails that go between departments that you have released. So those, I guess, by this definition is interagency. I don't know whether or not that actually is interagency, but you're making a determination. You're making a determination of some documents that you can release under this interagency restriction and other documents that you cannot. So I guess my question now is, how are you making that determination? Why are the written requests from all departments restricted and need to be summarized for my consumption, as opposed to other documents around the strategy for incorporation, available? How are those policies?
We don't know that she did that. And you can release interagency documents if there's statistical information that don't require discretion or recommendation. That's the distinction. So that's why you may get some and not others. But we'll speak.
Is that what you're saying is the case right now?
I don't know, because I don't have a capital budget, and that wasn't responsive. I wasn't responsive to that.
Well,
that came from the controller.
Mr. Lewis, in the last meeting that I was at, you said, and I can point to it. It's at 10:45 on the YouTube video that I can send you guys of the very meeting. You said that you personally took responsibility for all of this. So if you personally took responsibility for all of this, and then set a deadline, and then let the deadline blow on by, how do you not know about this request? And how have you not made those requests on my behalf? It appears to me, given the fact that we still don't have a date certain, you still haven't given me a written reason, that you're not, again, in compliance with the very law that we discussed last week. or 2 weeks ago, and that's problematic.
Okay.
And then I look at this, and I see that you've now totaled up 30 documents that you've sent me out of the 6,000 you quoted, or 0.5% of the documents that I've requested. And I'm wondering, are you saying that 99.5% of all documents in this building, as related to my request, are privileged or intra-agency, and they're all, by the way, coming from your email addresses if you're just simply forwarding them and printing them out? How is the progress going of reviewing the other 99.5% of the documents related to my request? It appears that you don't want to comply with the law.
Okay, well, that's how it appears to you. I think we have complied with the law. I think we continue to comply with the law. Again, we've spoken to the chair of the Committee on Open Government.
Right.
He's advised us, and I don't know what to say to you.
Did you speak to him subsequent to the letter he sent?
Well, I don't think that that's the subject of this FOIL hearing.
Wait a minute. Let's read his letter, because I think it's pretty important. So he gives you a number of quotes in the provision, and then he says, based on the foregoing, an agency must grant access to records, deny access to records, or acknowledge the receipt of the request within 5 days of the receipt. When an acknowledgement is given, it must include an approximate date, generally not in excess of 20 business days. You've asked again for another 20 business days. And so apparently you're going to give me the other 99.5%, or at least tell me what documents I'm not going to get by this Friday, because that's what's in the last email that I got. It must include an approximate date, generally not in excess of 20 business days. We're now long past that, indicating when it can be anticipated that the grant will be denied. However, if it is known that the circumstances prevent the agency from granting access within 20 days, or if the agency cannot grant access by the approximate date given and needs more than 20 days, it must provide a written explanation of its inability to do so and a specific date, a, quote, date certain, and not Trump quote, it literally says, quote, a date certain by which it will grant access. And that date must be reasonable in consideration of the circumstances of the request. I requested documents a month before the hearing on incorporation, specifically regarding incorporation. And you're saying that your inability to give me 99.5% of the relevant documents that you cited at the last meeting is reasonable in consideration of the circumstances of the request. You're in compliance with this letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I just ask a question in terms of like a date certain? Is there do we have to say, when I spoke to Bob Freeman, he said if it takes a year because you need a year and there's legitimate reasons, that's acceptable to him. So do we have to say, do we have to give a specific timetable in terms of compliance?
Yes, so I think what we did was on or about April 21st, in response to Mr. Sherwin's request, we indicated that we needed an additional 20 days.
Right.
That was going to be, I think, until May 19th or something like that. That's what really prompted this appeal, because he wasn't satisfied with that response. But again, we did give him documents 4 days after he requested it. We've continued to give him documents.
No, I know you've been giving it.
So it's not like we haven't been giving him
No, but I'm saying,
documents.
do we have to say, right, but...
Yeah, so we did ask for the requested additional 20 days.
Right.
What Mr. Sherwin is saying, what we did not do is say to him at that time, and this is the reason why we need those additional 20 days. Now, subsequently, at the appeal that we had last week or 2 weeks ago, we did explain the reason to him, which he was not satisfied with, but we did not put that in writing. So he is correct in that respect. Having said that, we have additional documents that we're releasing today. There's an additional statement we're releasing today, and the only documents we're not releasing, I think he requested some assessment information from particular people who sought to reduce their assessments, who maybe have opposed incorporation. I guess he wants that information to target them in some way. We haven't released that information because I don't have that. And the information that he requested...
I don't believe it had sufficient property information, but I think that's been provided now.
Yeah, within 20 minutes I asked for all grievances related to those particular parcels. So I have all those parcels. So you guys have all that information now. It's been accepted, and I simply want to know what the grievances are.
Okay, well, I didn't have that information, so I could not give that to you.
I-
And it didn't show up on the computer disk that I had, so that pertained to a different department.
That's fine. That's a different request. That's my third request. I have 3 requests in right now, and I have timelines on all of them. Are you saying that I'm going to get 99.5% of the other documents by this Friday? Or you're going to have reviewed all of them by that point?
Yeah, I pretty much have reviewed most of the disk already, so I'm
Okay.
almost done. You'll get documents today. I think Carolina, who you may have spoken to, has indicated to you that there are some documents that she's waiting to give you. So there are additional documents you're going to get today. I think there are some documents I have from the library, which were not on the disk, and you'll get those documents, and I think your request will be satisfied from my perspective by May 17th, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's good. So there's
So-
nothing to complain about.
Well, well, except for the fact that there have now been 2 meetings where, Tim Lewis said he was going to do a few things where I haven't gotten it. So I still want to know the date of when you requested the Greenburgh list. And you said you were going to give it to me, but now are you reneging on that?
First of all, if it's not in writing, you're not entitled to it. You're entitled to written records.
Is this meeting covered under, those requests, like any requests around that? Or you want me to actually send you a separate document saying, I'd like you to do what you said you were going to do? I'll do that. I'll send you a
If I
document.
don't have a written record,
Fine.
you're not going to get a written record.
Okay.
So he's going to get
Okay.
about, thousands of emails now?
Yeah, it should be
In total, it's about 1,000. Some of the documents are not even relevant to Edgemont Incorporation. Edgemont may be in the name, but it doesn't pertain to incorporation. So I looked at each of the documents. Again, some of them are intra-agency, so they just don't get disclosed. Some of them are exempt for other reasons because it may pertain to attorney-client privilege and things like that. So there are a lot of documents that they're just not really entitled to.
But you have to, by law, if you're going to withhold documents from production under a FOIL, you have to demonstrate that you're entitled to do that. You can't just issue a blanket, well, you're going to get some, but you're not going to get all, and I'm withholding the rest.
Well, I'm not
You
going to go
can't
through
do
each
that.
document and write, oh, this is attorney-client, this is intra-agency.
I'm sorry, Tim,
Yeah,
Tim,
Tim,
the
I
law
think that's
requires.
Then the date is not going to be May 17th. The date is going to be a date that's not certain because I can't tell you how long.
Then
it's
you're
gonna
not in
take me to
compliance
do.
with the law.
Well, then you'll speak to Bob Freeman and he'll make a determination whether
No,
I
we
am
don't-
or
we
I
don't
aren't.
speak to Bob
But
Freeman.
It's about reasonableness. And to me, it would not be reasonable for me to go through 5,600 documents and then indicate for you why I think this one is
no.
attorney-client privilege or not.
You have to do what everybody does
Okay.
when you are faced with a request for disclosure. If you are going to withhold documents because you're claiming an exemption, you have to specify the following documents are being exempted under, pick whatever exemption you like, and explain why. And you have to do that at the appeal. This is the appeal. That's what we're here on, an appeal. And you can't just say, because I say so, or because I think they're privileged. You have to show why. In a litigation, you're a lawyer, you have to disclose, the name, date, and subject matter of the request and explain why it's privileged. Just because you happen to be copied on it doesn't mean that it would involve conveying a request or receipt of legal advice, which is all that's required for privilege. But you can't just say it. Or intra-agency. Intra-agency requires you to make a demonstration that the documents fall within the category.
Can I just ask-
Blanket exemptions do not work.
Can I
We litigated that
Yeah, but can I
against
ask
the town of
can I ask a
Greenburgh.
question? Because I feel that everybody on the town board wants to be in compliance with the Freedom of Information law. Could we schedule like a phone conversation and you could participate in with Bob Freeman? Then we both we could both ask the questions and then we'll get an answer.
Have you
Yes, sir.
explained to
Yeah.
Bob Freeman
No, but
the circumstances
I'm
here?
suggesting that we say at the next work session, if there's any dispute, you could speak to Bob Freeman. We could speak to Bob Freeman, and then we could clarify, you could clarify your position, you could clarify your position.
Bob Freeman is not the judge.
No, but he's the expert, he's been the expert on freedom of information requests since the 1970s.
Right, but he doesn't
No,
respond.
but you know what, because you know what, the issue is not, it's not a gotcha, it's basically what the law is. I want to basically comply with the law. We're not trying to not disclose information. I don't want to put you in a situation where I'm saying, release something that maybe should not be released, because I don't think that's fair. And this way, everything's out in the open, and nobody's will speak to an expert. I think that's fair.
Well, Mr. Leiter, actually, you already did us that. Sorry,
I
you
spoke with you.
you did us the favor. You actually did that already.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? If you disagree with Tim's interpretation, we could get Bob Freeman on the phone, and then we'll ask him, and he'll clarify and give us his opinion on who's right,
But it was asked and answered.
But Jeff,
But
also
wasn't that specific
in
enough.
an effort to help
Yeah.
you,
Sure.
Tim and I met one day last week, and we went over your requests. And then Tim asked me to share your requests with Bob Freeman, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob looked at each one of them, and he said, I think that what would be helpful would be to ask Jeff to make his requests a little more reasonable. And this is what he said. For example, he said, instead of saying all and any, he said, ask Jeff if he could be more specific with respect to which departments is he looking at. Are there some specific departments that he feels has the information that he's looking for? That way, it'll help us to narrow the scope, and it won't seem like an impossible task to have to look at 5,000 emails. Do you think that's reasonable? Can we do that?
So first, I appreciate your giving it that level of thought. My concern with going and saying, my concern with going and looking at it restricted to a particular department is that you're going to look for those that only have a single department, and many of the emails that I've gotten, of the 30 some odd emails that I got, out of those 6,000 were emails that had every department on them. So it was an email with Don Cannon and Hugh Schwartz and Michael Schwartz, and then the chief of police, the head of public works, the head of how would I scope? I would then have to do, okay, I'd like to see these from this department or this department or this department, and not exclusively or all. And I'm thinking about it in terms of how you would run this search through your Microsoft Exchange server. And what I did in my May 2nd request was I made you a termed search list, right? So these are things that you can literally plug in to Microsoft Exchange and get out everything. And you could have, if you wanted to, put in the word not and the word privileged, or put in the word not and the word confidential. And then it would literally give you everything that was not marked privileged or confidential. You could have, if you wanted to, put in the word not and Tim Lewis, or not and town attorney, and you could have gotten all of those. And that would at least narrow the scope of what Mr. Lewis has to look for, look through manually.
That wasn't the original request, was it?
In fact, it was. In fact, it was. So what I said was all town board and departmental correspondence, including email, documentation, notes regarding Edgemont Incorporation, Edgemont
Not
Business,
limited to, right?
including but not limited
You left that
to.
out when you just said that.
No, you're cutting me off before I finish reading the request, dude. Like, it's literally right there in plain English. With or mentioning Jeff Sherwin, Mark Rosenblatt, John Lewis, Bob Bernstein, Hugh Schwartz, Mike Schwartz, Don Cannon, Marty Payson, Margaret Goldberg, Tom Blank, Esmond Pacino, and all non-privileged communication with Lino Sciaretta, James Gaffar, and William Harrington. If the law says that I'm not entitled to non-privileged information, then it should be implied through the FOIL request that you don't provide me with those. But if what you're saying is I need to send you a new request saying all non-privileged information, I suppose I can do that. But you're effectively, by virtue of the fact that you gave me some, but not others, you already know that you should be giving me all non-privileged information.
You
I gave
said
you all the relevant documents that we have.
No, you just said there's another 1,000.
I did not say that. I did not say that.
We'll go back.
I gave you all the
Actually, you did, and we have it on tape now.
I gave you all the relevant
Mr. Lewis, you're contradicting yourself in tape.
I'm contradicting myself.
All right, so whether you are or you're not,
Mr. Feiner,
this needs to come to closure.
Make sure that you're on this.
It needs to come to closure. You're either complying with the law or you're not. If you're not, then we'll have to take an Article 78 and a judge will review it. But when we do that, we want to be in a position where we have everything that you're going to produce. And you're now in a position where you said, I have documents that Carolina will be producing to you today, and there may be some documents where you'll have everything by the 17th, and we have the 19th as your outside date, but you're going to need additional time to be able to identify that which is being withheld on grounds of interagency or privilege. But the question is, when can that which is not being withheld be produced? You said
No,
2
what
weeks
you
ago.
want me to do is go through all of the documents that I think are intra-agency or otherwise exempt or otherwise privileged, identify each of those documents.
No, I'm asking you to
Let me
comply
finish.
with the law.
Each of those documents as to why I think, me personally, they're either exempt or
Wait, hang on a
privileged.
second.
That's what you're saying.
No,
I'm
that's not
telling
what he's
you-
saying,
I'm
Tim.
telling you that I cannot do
Tim,
that by
Tim,
tomorrow.
Tim.
I have provided documents that I've looked at that I believe are not privileged and not exempt to the clerk's office, which they will release.
So you're going to have
Tim,
1,000 tomorrow.
No,
Maybe.
wait. What you're doing is setting up an argument that's absurd. This is like me saying to you, I'd like you to go to California, and you're saying I don't have 40 days to drive to California. When I'm saying you could take $700 and fly to California. You are choosing the method under which you are choosing to respond to this as being overly burdensome. And I have explained in this session how you could avoid that and narrow the scope of the manual test that you are looking to take on as a way of either delaying or not responding or not complying with the law. And there, in fact, is the problem.
Well, the thing is, sometimes, for example, when I'm asking you a legal question, I never write attorney-client privilege. I don't think I've ever said that. So the thing is, or I never say not. I'm not using your words. So you're looking.
You could simply just choose to not give me those emails that have Tim Lewis on them, and then let Tim Lewis make those decisions.
But this is what I think we should do, right? We like Bob Freeman because we feel he's objective and he can guide us and he's a specialist in the area. Judith and I have consulted with him. We'll continue to consult with him about the law, about following the law, as you said. And you know what? We'll revisit the issue. And if he says that that's a reasonable position to take and we should specifically identify the documents that are privileged or exempt, we'll do that.
Don't you know what the law requires
No,
already?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Yeah,
So
and the
this is
reason
the way
I
to
know-
resolve
the
issue,
reason I know,
I
Tom,
think
board
is fair to everybody because we have an objective individual
That's what I think.
involved,
I think
and
we've
then we
litigated
rely on
this
that
issue.
objective individual's decision.
I
That's
know.
what I would
I'd rather
suggest.
go
I think what we need here is some closure. Either you will provide the documents and the justification for the withholding, or you won't. But we need closure, because the purpose of an appeal is to get closure. And this is now an appeal that's been adjourned twice. And you're either going to provide it or not provide it. Bob Freeman is a great guy and he's a great resource, but he is not the judge in this case. He doesn't have the facts he needs to know what is reasonable, reasonable under all the circumstances. He doesn't know the context in which these requests have been made, nor is he privy to the statements that you've made, which we have on tape. You guys have heard him say there are 6,000 documents responsive to the request. They need to be reviewed. That was weeks ago. Where are we since then? We've only gotten 31 documents.
He said there's 1,000 that
we
you
don't
get in the next
maybe,
day.
Maybe, and we'll see what we get. But what we did get, and this is the telling part, and this is what the public needs to understand, what we did get was a summary prepared for him, for Jeff, of requests that have been made rather than the actual documents. That's telling and fishy. and nothing else, despite the fact that there were thousands of documents that were supposed to be reviewed weeks ago. And we get that you're busy, you have lots of things to do. But under the circumstances, given what's already been produced, which is very little, but quite telling, it would seem to me that each and every one of you have a responsibility under the Freedom of Information Law to make sure Tim does what's necessary to get these documents produced as quickly as possible so we can bring this proceeding to closure. It shouldn't be that we have to then take an Article 78, and while we're litigating the Article 78, documents get produced in dribs and drabs. That case has been brought and decided many times in the state of New York. It's not one that is favorable to the agency, because that is a situation where courts conclude that you are stonewalling and deliberately withholding documents so that the people requesting them can't get them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to avoid that. Now, you were here and you heard me discuss this weeks ago when Tim said he had 6,000 to review. By the way, 6,000 is not that much because you can scan them pretty quickly. But to only produce, after all of this time, 31 emails.
Well, it's 1,000 for tomorrow.
Maybe, but until we get it, we don't know.
Emails, it could be 5,600 documents that comprise many emails. My suggestion, I think we should use the resource we have in Bob Freeman. We'll get back to
I also think that you should consider very seriously using the resource you have in the software that every company across the entire country basically has, which is an email server that can search the documents on the email server.
And asking for Bob Freeman to weigh in yet again is stonewalling. And we have a statutory right to this information, and you're not giving it to us. And it's pretty clear, given what we've already received, that you're not producing it because it's very embarrassing.
No, that's not.
Then produce it.
First of all, I assume you probably hacked them. That you probably have everything anyway.
That is an accusation that I'm trying to fix.
Don't apologize to that.
You should apologize. You do not apologize. That was inappropriate.
Suggesting that we would hack? No, you hired private investigators to go into people's phones.
I said it's a joke.
That was a joke. Not a very good one.
In this climate, you guys.
Okay. Let me just say something.
Sure, Diana, please.
Tim, are there any documents that Carolina currently has that can be turned over to Mr. Sherwin right now?
Yes.
Okay, so can you at least get to see those? And then when you will have the next group? Did you say by the 19th? You had some more that you would be able to turn over?
There's some other documents that I don't have on the disk. I didn't see them on the disk that were forwarded to me, or they're in a sharing file from the library. Other than those documents, I don't think there are any other documents that I reviewed that need to be released, unless there are other documents that aren't on email, because these documents came through the server. So, for example, if you have a document between yourself and Mr. Sherwin that he gave you a paper copy, I wouldn't have access to that. But all the email documents that were on the disk, I reviewed all of those documents.
Okay, so can the town or your office give Mr. Sherwin what Carolina currently has put together, plus whatever else you have prepared so that they have those documents to review?
Yes, after this work session, she's going to press the button, and those documents will be disseminated to Mr. Sherwin.
Well, it's going to be like over.
Why was it waiting until after the work session to push the
Because
button?
there was some the documents that I forwarded her, I wanted to take one last look at to make sure they weren't either exempt or privileged.
Yeah, so let me just say something, just so I could clarify the joke so it doesn't get life. I'm of the belief that anytime there's an email or any town document, at some point, I just assume that it could be public. It's going to, because I figure if Hillary Clinton's documents were found by Putin and released to the world on, WikiLeaks, and if the president of France, if all his information was produced, I just assume that every time I start typing, that at some point, whether I like it or not, it's going to be released. So I don't really care if I'm not telling the town attorney, don't provide information, because I assume that at some point it's all going to be, it's all accessible anyway. So to me, my goal is for the maximum amount of information to be, provided. I'm glad that you're releasing 1,000 emails. I haven't.
1/6 of
I'm glad you're
emails.
getting 1,000. Right now. If it's up to me, first of all, I don't keep secrets, so I figure whatever I've done, said, or written, basically everybody knows anyway.
Mr. Finer, it is up to you in the end, right? So,
well, I don't want to
just Mr. Lewis is basically saying that 5/6 of the documents and emails that he's gotten and he's done a search on is something that he's unwilling to review at this point, or has reviewed and doesn't think are appropriate to hand out. And you're saying, and the town board is saying, that you're all for open government, but the town attorney works for you. We didn't elect him. He's the town attorney. He works for you. So if you're saying that you want to be really open, you should say to the town attorney, I want you to release as much of those documents as you can, and I want you to come to this meeting knowing full well what the law is, instead of saying, I don't know what the law is. And I think that's the problem.
I basically want the maximum amount of information released.
We'll give that as an order.
But I also feel that I want to make sure that we're in compliance with the law. And what I wanted to suggest is that all of us sit in a room, we put the phone here, we call Robert Freeman. If there's a dispute, we ask him for his counsel. So it's not me or you saying one thing, and this way he could hear from both sides, and that's, to me, the fairest thing. Before I got elected, I was one of 6 national recipients of the Common Cause Public Service Award in Washington, D.C., given by Archibald Cox, saluting me for my advocacy for open government.
If only you would continue.
If that were the case now, it'd be awesome.
And the town has been circling the wagons and not producing documents that we've been asking for months. And the documents that we have gotten demonstrate how critically important
What
it
we have
is.
on the agenda is a FOIL appeal hearing with a decision where there's a draft, and we've asked the town attorney to make changes to the draft.
Oh, that's news.
Which we need to have a discussion with our town attorney. We're going to executive session regarding legal issues regarding the draft. That's what's on the agenda. All of this expands on other foils, but we need to deal with that issue.
Thank you for coming.
Should we wait for the materials from Carolina?
I'll tell Carolina to release the materials right now.
Okay. So we're gonna do this again next week? Because, by the way, I also have...
Are you disposing of the appeal?
Right.
And if you dispose of the appeal, you need to do it in open session?
How are we going to do that?
We'll have the discussion. Well, first of all, we don't need to release the appeal in open session. If you'd like to do that, you can, or we could certainly send it to them. We'll have a discussion about the appeal, which only pertains to the March 17, 2017 FOIL request. And then we'll take it from there.
The appeal on the appeal.
Right.
The appeal, the vote on the appeal, you're not going to do that in public?
That would have to be done.
Yes.
Of course. And that's why we're here.
We're for open government, right?
Okay. Well, then you'll wait around until the town board makes that decision after executive session, and then they'll vote on it in open session.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That we're in compliance.
Yeah, I think so. I think that might be in here. But we're going to have to modify this.
Okay, so we have a decision of the town board of the town of Greenburgh in the matter of appeal pursuant to Chapter 360, the town's Freedom of Information Law, regarding requests for records of town correspondence, including all emails from March 2016 to present related to the Greenville Fire District and the proposed village incorporation of the Edgemont section of town, and requests for 2017 capital budget submissions by town. And
Just one quick thing, just so you know, where the town attorney said he was going to push the button and send 1,000 documents to me, they pushed the button, but I only got 20. So once again,
Well, maybe he has to push the button again.
I asked them, they said there's nothing else to send today.
Okay, well, continue.
Well, just for clarification, I think that what Tim meant, Jeff, was that he was releasing all the emails that he sent last night to Carolina, and I think that the additional 1,000 or whatever that number, whatever they discussed today, would not be released today because they're not prepared. So Carolina did release everything that Tim sent to her yesterday.
Oh, I'm sure Carolyn did what he was asked. What I'm saying is, he had said that there was another 1,000, and he was going to push the button.
Can I just ask you-
And then didn't do what he said.
Is there any others definitely that are going to be given tomorrow?
I'm not sure. We just released what the town attorney gave us late last night and this morning.
Okay, now, when I spoke to, Tim after, he indicated that, some of the characteristic parts of the wording that we've been using was a little inaccurate, because originally he said, oh, there could be 6,000 emails, and now he said, what he's clarified to me was documents, or so it's not 6,000 individual emails.
Okay.
I just feel that with the summary, we should really highlight the fact that we've been we've been conferring with the Committee on Open Government and Robert Freeman, because this has not been, our recommend. I know that, from my standpoint, and I think from everybody else's, everybody wants to comply with the law, and I want to make sure that, if Mr. Freeman feels that we're doing something inappropriately, and he tells us that, then I have no problem following his recommendations. Yeah.
All right, so the conclusion of the board is that the town board finds no merit to the appeal because the town attorney's office has been and continues to respond to the appeal within a reasonable period of time as prescribed by law and as verified by the executive director of the New York State Committee on Open Government. That's the conclusion. That's a motion.
All in favor? All in favor.
Is that
Should
a
we
second?
kind of, in terms of
I'm
the,
making the motion, but I'm making
As amended.
can I just ask a question? Within a reasonable period of time as prescribed by, should we say, as per discussions, we've had with the executive director of the New York State Committee on, on open government?
Isn't that what has verified with the executive director of the New York State Committee on Open Government means?
I'm just sort of wondering this way, if they basically, if Mr. Sherwin, wants to, object to the comments when he speaks to, the Committee on Open Government, at some point, Mr. Freeman feels that, there's other information, then he could always tell us, and we could make, additional changes if we
Did you
have to.
provide all the information?
I provided him with all the information.
There's a motion and a second on the floor.
All in favor?
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Here. I definitely provided him with all the information.
Okay. He knows the circumstances.
He knows
All
the
right.
circumstances.
And the actual opinion will be available in the town attorney's office later today or tomorrow.
Okay.
They should